Welcome to the Image Critique Show with Jeff Johnson, Rick Avalos, and their special guest. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Well, welcome, folks. Good to see you again. This is our special show this month. As you know, for Colorado State Photography members, we have our competition coming up on the 20th of October. So this is a great opportunity to get some great feedback to prepare for that competition. So we've got a lot of good images, a lot of beautiful images, and we have a phenomenal guest with us. I'm going to let Rick introduce Dave to you in just a minute. But Rick, hi, how are you? We missed Rick last
Yeah,
week.
hey, how's it going,
Everybody
man?
applaud for Rick. We missed him last week. Welcome.
Yeah, and it's kind of bittersweet because it's so nice to be back, and I missed not being there last week. But the bitter part of it is that I heard that there were more people that came on to view. There were more images submitted, and I don't know if the word got out that I wasn't going to be there.
I tried not to tell him, Rick. I kept it under wraps, but
Be
it
in
didn't
the
come
show.
out.
So
Yeah, I didn't want.
anyway, I appreciate Cliff's uh, participation and efforts. Just really wouldn't go as smoothly as it does without his efforts. And to Dave Huntsman, a dear friend of ours and just an outstanding photographer. Many of you have been career as far as starting paying the bills with portraits and weddings, wedding photography, and then kind of transitioned to his passion of landscape photography, and over the last few years before his retirement, commercial photography. So, we've got someone here that knows the drill, and I'm so happy to have Dave here, and I'm confident as far as the information that he's going to share with us. We could go into quite a bit of time of his accolades. Obviously master photographer. He was on the PEC committee, and I'll let you guys go ahead and research that, those of you that don't know it, because again, with PPFA, everything is evolving to a great extent, but just a great photographer, great contributor, a giver, and one of the kindest men I've ever known. So, Dave, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and we're looking forward to a really great evening.
You're welcome, and I appreciate you guys asking. And you and Rick, or you and Jeff, have always just been, held in high regard to me, and I was tickled to death to be able to do this for you.
Yeah, we're glad you said yes because it's been I've always been very impressed with your not just your work but yourself. We've known each other for a long time, and it's just been fun to get our friends on the show and share what we know of you with everybody who's tuning in here. I think they're going to have a pleasant evening, good information, and all those kind of things. So we're about ready to start here. We got a good full night of images. I've got about 26 images, 27 images, something in that ballpark. And so we're going to go into that. And remember, if you have questions along the way, please use the chat box. Cliff is monitoring that, so if he feels the question is pertinent to what we're talking about, he'll jump in and we'll talk about it, or just jump on the mic if you aren't that rude. And just careful what you say. But that's the whole thing. This is open. This is open for discussion. It's open to make sure you guys are getting in. And I know that we have competition designed images tonight, so I know you don't want to reveal your ownership of these. So I would say definitely, if there's a question that you think might identify, I would put it in the chat box. Of course, Rick is our jury chair for the Colorado State, so we don't want him to see who the makers are. I'm of course the print chairman, so it doesn't matter if I know. I'll know anyhow. Dave's not judging for us at the show, so it's okay. But yeah, feel free to join in and ask some questions. So if
Yeah,
there
and
yeah.
I appreciate you bringing that up, Jeffy, because last week we had the opportunity to visit about images, and if you had some that you wanted to work on and prepare for tonight's show, we're gearing this tonight's show really towards competition theme. So I hope you guys will and gals will understand, the comments that aren't going to be as generalized as maybe they usually are, but focus just a little bit more towards getting ready for the competition in a few weeks.
Yeah, and just real quick, we have just a few more days to see. We're at the third here. So we have another week for you to submit your images for the regular price, if you will. And then as of, I think it's going to be actually like about 6 o'clock on the 10th, the price does go up for entry and it will be cut off on the 15th at 10 p.m. And we won't we've always I'm the bad guy. I've always extended it. You're welcome. This time we won't be. We've got plenty of time. So please get your stuff in there. Please fill it all out right. Make sure you got the right categories. I will be checking it also if you don't. It's no big deal. The other major thing is if you are a master photographer, there's a master category. If you're not a master, please enter it in the general category. They'll make my job a whole lot easier. So, all right. Enough all that stuff. Let's go over here and I'm going to steal the screen and get my images back up here. And gentlemen, if you're ready, I'm going to pull up some images. And oh, the other thing we didn't talk about, Dave, are you familiar with the well, it's called the annotate, the pencil tool in Zoom?
No.
So I've opened up this box and you will have I'm not sure where it is. Rick, you know from that, it's a little different.
Bottom left corner, it's a green pencil icon.
So you'll get this on my machine. If you guys see my machine, okay.
Yeah.
There's the pencil tool, and use the third line width and the draw the first one, and then you can choose different colors. So the idea here, Dave, is when you're talking, go ahead and scribble all over the picture, and circle things, highlight things. That's the video stuff that they get to see, and it definitely helps.
Very nice. It's a very cool image. I love the composition on this, and I did go back and watch Thursday night's thing, and it looks like they made some changes that you guys recommended the other night.
Yeah,
I noticed they cropped the bottom very nicely, getting rid of some of the elements that were there before. Definitely made a nice difference in this. Um, and I think coming in a little bit at the top also helped a lot. So I think that all works very well. Uh, I like the color palette of the image and the composition design of it. I think it's a very very nice, very nicely done. Uh, on my monitor, I don't know how it looks on yours, but there's just a little bit what appears to be a little bit of weakness in the image, and it could just be the Zoom presentation with the screen, but it could use just a little bit more punch from what I'm seeing on my screen currently.
Rick, what do you want to add?
Yeah, three things. Composition, I think, is handled extremely well. I like the panoramic presentation of the image and I've got to use this term, the Don Blair kiss of light on that view.
It's all right.
It's just, on the color palette that was mentioned by Dave is handled very well. Presentation, and you made a good point, Dave, as far as the possibility of the Zoom rendition might be making it just a little bit weak, but all in all, just really well done.
Yeah, and I'll say we had quite a conversation about this image last week and just mentioned some cropping and stuff. And I do like, again, we're not right or wrong. Well, we like to think so, but we're not right or wrong. Rick's right. I'm always guessing. Anyways, I think the composition, what you did, Maker, is outstanding. I really love grab my little pencil here. I really love this line coming in, a little bit of lightness of clouds. It kind of balances with this curve right here, so we have some nice movement. This curve brings us in, kind of brings us all into the little kiss of light, like Rick mentioned, onto the edge of the face of the cliff right there. And I think that's what makes this whole image really sing, is that little bit of light right there. That's just sweet light. I like the crop up. I know that I remember there was more image, more lower land down here, and while it was very interesting, I think this crop I like because this is now almost secondary. The mountain itself, the butte becomes more important, more better. I had to say that somewhere in there. It's just part of it.
Absolutely, I agree. I think the foreground now is definitely secondary, and that butte definitely becomes much more the focus of the image. And I don't know if this would be a strong thought, and particularly in a landscape, you know that that's the natural direction, but you are coming into the image from the you're coming into a stopper, you're coming into the dark side of the image. I don't know if flipping it um,
Oh yeah,
would
good point.
would lead you in more in through um, more in through this area, so that you would come in here and go right to the butte. Where right now you're coming into the back of it, and it kind of wants to stop your eye to keep you from moving across the image. So that might be a possibility.
How's that?
I think it makes it easier to come into the image for me that way, um, because you're not coming into the back of the butte.
Yeah, I'm flipping it back and forth, and I know that bothers some people. Sorry, but that's how I look at it. I kind of agree with you. It's a little bit more inviting to come into the scene from the left. What do you think, Rick? Does that change it?
Yeah, no, I have totally agree.
Here's the regular way. Again, that's just, three old guys making a comment, but I do agree.
Yeah, it certainly, if you're a purist and you want to stick with the scene being what it was, then you're certainly going to be fine the way it is. But in art, you have stoppers in images, and when you come into dark areas right off the bat visually, because we typically tend to read left to right, when you come into the back side of this image, um, it tends to want to stop your eye from moving as much. Where when it's flipped, it tends to want to pull you right across from the nice brightness in the clouds right into the nice kiss of light that Rick mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, you know what, Cliffy, we've got there's are some things that we need to address. Questions. I'm seeing some questions popping up. Well, let me get to it.
Yeah, go ahead, Rick.
Dave referred to punch, so I guess we need to explain or clarify, Dave, what you mean by punch in the image.
What I mean by
So,
punches is particularly in the middle section of the butte where you're not getting that kiss of light, it's picking up a magenta tone, and it lacks the contrast that you get from the direct sunlight. But overall, it could use just a little bit more contrast. And
yeah,
if you use Nick filters, for instance, going in and doing a tonal contrast adjustment could bring just a little bit more contrast into this middle area, particularly, and make the image just a little bit more powerful. Because right now, this area right in here kind of tends to be a little bit more magenta and weak compared to the contrast and the shapes that you see up in this area.
right. And those are terms, Dave, that like punch and snap. Those type of things are the terms that we use to refer to a little bit more contrast and a little bit more maybe saturation. And several years ago, actually more recent than that, at our state meetings, we did have kind of a glossary of terms that we passed out to our members. So that might be something that we need to think about again, Jeff, for the
Yeah, good idea. Good idea. Yeah, because especially there's words that we use that we've heard all these years. Like I always refer to density, and people look at me with that question mark face.
Yeah.
So yeah, by all means, holler at us if we say something. Just put a bunch of question marks in the chat box if you go, what the? All right. Oh, you have one more thing to say?
No, I just said nice shot.
It is a nice shot.
Okay. Moving right along, we have a walk in the aspen. All right, hang on. Get rid of those guides. And I didn't clear the color. Hang on there. All right, David, go ahead. What do you think?
It's a beautiful image. It has wonderful use of color, great depth, pulls you through. Love the foreground, the texture in the leaves, and the little dappling of light. Just really pulls us in. Very nice. The presentation, I think, is handled very well. Uh, Tonality wise, it doesn't draw your attention, holds the image very, very nicely framed. If I was going to talk about a few concerns um, for competition, it would be let me see if I can make the pencil work for me. Um, but these areas like here, um, this little spot here,
Mm-hmm.
but there's some highlights throughout the aspens that tend to look blown out, lacking any texture or detail. And I think they could be toned down just a little bit, just bring those highlights down just a little, um, would work really well for this because it's got beautiful light quality, it's got beautiful light direction, um, and it really makes all the trees separate and stand out very nicely.
Ricky, what do you want to add?
Well, there's such a beautiful continuity from left to right of the image. And then we've got, this larger trunk that's commanding such a great spot of composition. And I do like whether, it's been burned in or just natural vignetting. It's really nice in the corners. Um, I guess my eye was drawn after the initial impact to this fallen soldier right here. And
Oh, okay, over there. I see your mark just showed up. We all have green. Why don't you change the color there, Rick?
why don't you change yours?
Okay. I got red. I'm enough said. I understand.
I just changed it to red.
I understand where I sit.
No, but I was just talking about, from left to right, how nice the continuity of light, the vertical trunks of the trees, everything playing so well. But then we have this really strong diagonal down here. And yet we have one over here to the right, and it really doesn't bother me because it's so secondary. But I don't know, this just kind of drew my attention, and we've talked about this a million times. Gosh, Rick, you're really nitpicking, but when we're talking about images that we really want to get into the stratosphere, we got to nitpick.
Yeah, I mean, I've always found that when an image comes up and there's a lot going for it, I don't want to say it's our job as jurors to find things wrong with it, but it's kind of a natural thing that you start, well, okay, this is good, but you start finding little things that stand out. And I believe that we've talked about this every show. You get rid of those little things that draw your eye unnecessarily away from where you want the story to go, and that just makes it that much stronger. And I'm wondering as I look at this, Rick, if you guys mentioned this diagonal tree here. If that was gone, is this going to make this one be more prominent because it's now the lone soldier standing in an angle? You think that should go as well, or?
I wouldn't have a problem with it if it did, because I really think it's a beautiful image. I like the dimensionality of the lighting. This trunk being as strong and demanding of attention, which it should be in that particular compositional area, this is really nice. And then we didn't even talk about the presentation, which I think is handled very, very well.
Yeah, it looks like a leather.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. Can we clear what we've drawn on there for a
What?
second? Okay.
What?
Um, it's interesting because I guess what you don't like on there kind of actually was a plus for me. I really enjoyed the vertical or the diagonal on the left, the little highlight running up it, and it kind of pulled when I come into that corner. It just pulls my eye right back up into the image. Again, it's one of the wonderful things about judging is you got five different people looking and five different opinions. But for me, I guess I really kind of enjoyed that little diagonal movement that pulled me into the image. And then over here, this doesn't bother me either because it again kind of held me in. The only thing over in this area is that little white highlight on the right side and the white little highlight over here. I would probably just take them out.
All right, good advice, guys. Thank you. Alpine storm approaching. Dave, what do you think?
So very nice. It's one of the first thing I guess that hits me. It's very powerful in the mountains. The clouds are strong. Um, I love what's going on up there. I don't love the foreground quite as much. The green color of the water and the brightness down there tends to pull my eye out of the what's going on in the mountains and the clouds. And I think that's, that helped quite a bit, just to keep it thinner. And I think you've taken about as much as you can off the top because you don't want to crop that upper right corner off. So that's good. Um, that said, I think the light overall has because of the clouds has a substantial flatness to it. Um, so for me, competition wise, I think it's going to fall just a little bit short on the merit. And then with the mat that was on there as well, I thought the presentation was just a little heavy. The key line is really, really big for that image and draws a lot of attention. So I would probably minimize that key line down to maybe 1 or 2 pixels versus the size it is now.
Rick, what do you want to add?
Totally concur. And I just feel that, as nice as an image as it is, and it's, so peaceful and calming to enjoy, I just feel that it wasn't quite the optimum time of day to capture the image.
Yeah, that's a tough one because you got a really beautiful scene going on here. The one thing that I'm keep going back to as I've been looking at it when you guys are talking here is I think let me get my little pencil tool on here. I think this area is very powerful. I should say this, let me do this. All of this clouds and this whole area here is very interesting and the water such, but these trees and they're just it's almost chaotic. They pull my eye away and there's nothing to see there. I mean, I don't mean to make that sound mean or anything, but it's kind of like, okay, yeah, trees. This is interesting here. So I think it makes for an interesting or a awkward composition because I do like this line of the water. When we trimmed it up and got a little bit less, it still left a nice little curve there. It kind of helps bring us in. But there's a lot of chaotic movement here that's not doing anything. I'm wondering if we could even crop it. Let's do that real quick. Let's see. How about if we go something like, well, I don't know. What do you guys think? Is this have any?
I agree with you, Jeff. Totally. I couldn't find a good way to say it, but I agree because I think all the tonality over on that right side conflicted so much with the power of the clouds and the black mountains, and this definitely I think helps it. And now you could probably even take a little bit more off the top if you wanted to. Um,
Maybe
now
half
that
the
you don't have that
distance.
mountain peak over there, and yeah, about right in there, um, which
Yeah.
really holds in. Um, I think it draws your attention much more to. Let me get my pencil going here.
You know what? It gives me a feeling of an
Right
increased
through here.
attention.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, because yeah, like you said, where you've drawn there, I think that's more the story of the impending doom, we'll say, of this storm coming in. Then, of course, my other selective choice is always to go this direction and see if that gives us any more.
I I think that helped it a lot because the the tension from the clouds in the mountains, and now you've gotten rid of an element over in here on the right side with that color that was really drawing you away, and now with the black and white that really holds you into um, everything being a lot more dynamic and powerful.
Yeah, this really gives you the impression that this storm is right overhead. It's coming in. The sun may be still over our shoulder, a little brighter sky that's giving us, let me go back to my pen tool here, giving us a little bit of brightness in this area, which is really gives us dimension to the scene. Just kind of plays up darkening the clouds as much as I did, just makes them that much more ominous. Um, and then as opposed to being juxtaposition, since Dennis isn't here tonight. Um, just we've built a little more tension and a little more story in here that, and again, Maker, we are obviously only trying to help. Let me just go back to the original, and
Time.
here we go. So yeah, so that's our thoughts, and we're sticking with them. How's that? All right. We now have an image called Base Camp. I want to be there right now.
Yeah,
Dave, what do
very
you
cool.
think? Yeah, what do you think about this one?
Oh, very cool. Love the depth of the mountains continuing on layer after layer. Um, love the leading line coming in from the right to base camp. That's a strong diagonal that just pulls you right into the tents. Um, the texture and that snow and the contrast um, from that dirt to the snow is just beautiful. Um, very, very nice. Presentation works very nicely. I think you used the dark blues of the mountains as your outer, and then the lighter blue of the mountains as your key line, and it works just fine.
Rick, what do you want to add?
Yeah, I could see compositionally um, coming up from the bottom and from the right, because base camp, while it's not totally bullseye, I would just like to see it, a little bit more into the closer to a PowerPoint, and we'd still have that, the vertical line that's leading to the base camp. So, maybe coming in something like that, and maybe, I don't know, something along that line, just to maybe even further from the left in, just to push the base camp a little more off center. But I love the rendition of the range behind the mountains.
So come in a little bit more like this, maybe
There you go.
like
Now
that.
we're really pushing that base camp in.
Just do this and go back here and clear this.
That definitely gets it more in that third PowerPoint.
Yeah.
And it's a good catch, Rich. Rick, I think that brings it in a nice spot.
And this is one of those things we start getting, and it sounds like we're being picky. Don't, it's not really meant to. If you see the density, the brightness, darkness of this area here, I would suggest taking this area down into that kind of a tonal range, maybe even something in here to let base camp stand out. There's another little camp setting up right back there. So kind of this being awful bright was competing with the snow, but it allows us to come in, but it lets the base camp stand out. Hey, let me ask you guys this opinion. This is a question I've heard over many years in competition. What do you think? How do you feel about the cyan cast in the shadows, especially of snow? Obviously, it's going to happen back here in the mountains, but what do you think about the cyan cast?
You know,
Does that
for
bother
me,
you?
it's natural.
Right.
I've not been one to have a problem with that because every time I'm out in the world and we're out with the shadows that are cast by other mountains, and it's just the blue sky, and shadow density is not going to have the same colors most of the time. It's normally going to go to a cool tone. So
Right.
for me, I think it's believable and natural.
Yeah.
Anything more in that, Rick?
No, I mean, I guess it comes down to the maker's choice and how they want to present the image, because certainly, adjustments can be made. But when we're looking at the natural, just like Dave said, natural reflection, a lot of it from the sky, a lot of it from the mountain area, but then we're having that play of the cool against the warm. And that, to me, that's what tells the story. So I'm just not really, having a problem with that. I would, again, the nitpicking thing, as natural as these things are, maybe just pull, taking care of this as far as taking them out. Just little things that can tend to pull our eyes away from the main uh, focus of the image.
Jeff,
Maybe.
I think
Oh,
I agree
go
with
ahead, Dave. Sorry.
I totally agree with what you were talking about in these areas of dirt. And, even back in here, I think taking all these areas and bringing them more into the density of over in here, like you were talking about, would definitely make everything richer. It would make all these tones richer, um, which would even make that punch even stronger and just make it better.
And that ought to be a word we should use more, richer, because I think that says a lot. It's not just darker, but richer. We're giving it some more oomph. There's another technical term we can use, giving it a little more kick there. Um, I was going to ask you guys a question while we're on this, and I've forgotten. So I guess we will
Can we see the presentation again, Jeff?
absolutely. Let me just clear all this here.
Okay. Well, personally, I don't have a problem with the presentation in terms of the color of the mat, and I think the key line is a good width and a good distance from the image. So many times we'll see key lines that are way up, around the image, and that can really tend to be a distraction. But I think the location of this key line relative to the image is handled quite well.
Yeah, it's kind of an optical illusion. When that key line starts creeping out and almost divides it in half, it makes it more obvious we go and look at it. But when you have this key line closer to the image, it just becomes secondary. And remember, guys, that we say this a lot, but in the PPA competitions, we have to do a mat and the keystroke and whatever. And color coordinating with the image is very important, but just to make it blue and brown or blue and gold, whatever, it still has to be secondary. It still has to be soft and
Right.
yeah, color coordinated, but we don't want that to be the first thing that
Right. And then I'm sorry, go ahead.
that was all.
Just
Okay.
one other thing was, sitting here the longer we sat, these little areas like this could be taken down a little bit. Um, they're
Yeah.
just they just pull your eye out.
Yeah.
Um, more of these three than this one. This one is kind of in that direct sun line, but these in on that deep mountain probably could come down a little bit to help it
Yeah.
also.
And we've talked about this before too, and I'll be real quick about the key line. Um, I commend the maker for detaching, separating the key line from the image, because if this key line with that color value were attached or snapped to the image all the way around, it would totally disappear, especially on the top.
That's
So,
true.
so
Yeah.
kudos to the maker.
And the other little trick too, we've done this a few times for those of you who are watching us, is to go in and to come on, keyword. I got my camera right in front of that. So do something like this with your image, and that just throws your brain for a loop for a second, but you start looking at the image in terms of what's catching my eye. Is it, and then I'll ask myself, is it necessary? Do my eyes need to go over there? So yeah, just these areas that Dave talked about, the heights, hot spots. If they're still in the shadow that match the rest of the mountain, it's still there. They haven't taken them away. It hasn't really taken any importance away from, but it's not pulling your eye away from that themed area that we want it to be. So just keep little things like that in mind. So, okay. We now have brushing the surface. That's pretty good.
Hmm.
Somebody clear the junk. Rick, if you want to jump into this one, go right ahead.
Yeah. I think it's a really neat capture as I'm seeing it. It's tack sharp. We've got some strong light on the image. Might be just a little bit tight in the composition, and we also have, little things going on here that can be cleaned up. One of the main things for me, and I do like the way that the background was handled. We really need to have some kind of a presentation on this image, as far as I see it. But I think we need to back up just a little bit. The main subject is just, or the subject is just a little full in the composition. How close the feet and legs are to the edge here. I think backing up just a little bit more and allowing a little more space visually to come into the image.
Yeah, I was kind of remembering, I'm trying to think who it was years ago. Somebody said when you do something like this with a bird, not the law, but a good rule of thumb is to give that bird a chance to flap its wings inside the picture here. That'll give you a good feel of a better compositional feel from the bird to the background. So you want to think that the wings are down, give it enough room to bring its wings up full extension. And then this couple things that you mentioned, the white spot, but also this little oops, I just closed it. This little green in the grass in the background, or a plant or something, and the hot spots that are there, and this stuff. Again, I know they're there, but they pull your attention. Then even little things, if you flip it upside down, I'd probably blend this a little bit better, these black spots, and these guys back here. Again, it's not that you want to make it all blah, nothing. Don't make it look all just like this tone, but soften them. Leave some of it there. Don't get rid of it, but soften them so they're not as obvious to the viewer. Dave, something you
I
want to add to
agree
that?
with I agree with everything you guys have said. Beautiful capture,
Yeah, absolutely.
really nice. Love the little wingtip touching the water, um, and all the comments you guys have made have been dead on. The only other thing, again, going back to contrast or punch, but I would love to see just a little bit more punch in the bird himself. I think that would accent the feathers and the texture in the feathers a little bit more, and I think it would just take it to the next dimension that way.
Let me try something here. I'm kind of feeling, I mean, it's this bright sunny day, but I'm thinking that maybe our color balance might be off just a little bit, and that was going a little bit too far. But these birds are a gray white.
Yeah,
And you view something like that. Now we have the main thing is I'll go back here, is if you look at the color tone of the whole scene is very golden,
yellow.
yellow. And when you
There's a lot of yellow
separate,
in those grays. Where here you cleaned that up,
yeah,
and you've really brought those feathers out on the wings, particularly.
yeah, brings the bird away from the background, makes the wings have dimension, brings the color into the feet. So
And
just,
you are going to have to definitely take care of this area right in here because it is very, very hot.
yeah.
So if you can, but definitely getting rid of that yellow tone overall that created a muddiness to the bird itself. But boy, as soon as you switch that over, those feathers just popped.
Well,
Yeah.
just look at you can see the color in the beak and the color in the feet just stand out and the gray, but even there's a blue gray. There's even a little bit of a violet gray in the wings. It just really gives us that true feel. The bird here, it's just kind of brown. So yeah, keep that in mind, maker. I think that's a good suggestion from the powers that be. All right, we now have Catfish to Go. Good titles, by the way, gang. We've been talking about titles, but get rid of the brushes there. We've had some really good titles already tonight. So, Catfish to Go, Dave, what do you think?
Oh, love it. Um, Absolutely wonderful capture. Um, and when we talked about punch on the other image, look at this. This has got it. I mean, we're seeing the scales on the fish. We're seeing all the texture in the feathers. The lighting on the bird is beautiful. There's plenty of room around it. It's got room to flap its wings. It's got plenty of direction to go. If I was going to pick on any couple of little things, one is lack of presentation. Um,
Right.
Definitely need to put some presentation on it. I think would help. Just a couple of little places need to tone down that area. And I don't know what I would do about down here either. I would probably just bring in some more of these plants and just clone them in down here. But that little soft, mushy corner, for whatever reason, just drew my eye right over there. So I'd want to do something down there to clean that up. But beyond that, I absolutely love the bird, love the movement. And again, if we're just talking nitpicky things, if you wanted to flip it so that the bird was flying, what you came into the image from the left like you normally do, then you're going to come into the front of it.
Oh, good job, Jeff. That's not what you meant there? Okay.
Probably not exactly what I was thinking, Jeff.
Like I said, my microphone is just coming down the corner of the menu, and I just didn't see where my mouse was. So I looked up.
Hate when that happens.
So all right, let me ask you this, because we've had this conversation with other experts like yourself. So we've flipped it, so we have that comfortable feeling. But now the bird's going from right to left. Does that mess with your mind when we think how we read left to right and all those things? Is there something you should consider there? It becomes a comfort thing, doesn't it, at that point?
For me, I like, because my eye's going to come in from the left, and I like just coming in, and I'm going to draw here, but I'm coming in right through here, and then this wing just pulls me right up and causes me to circle, and then I'll be drawn back and through, but I really like this movement on the up the curve of the wing, and I like the direction and motion of the bird like this better than the other.
Yeah, I think I kind of lean that way. What do you think, Rick?
Yeah, everything that's been said, and then I'm seeing a little bit on the corner, bottom left corner here. And because the bird is relatively smaller in the composition, as opposed to the other one that we were talking about, I'm thinking, man, it'd be kind of neat if we maybe cropped it down from the top a little bit.
Drop it down. Let's do that.
Kind of make a little bit more of a slim line out of it.
Oh, where you had, I think that's good. Yeah, like in here.
Yeah, and then we can push it up a little bit so that
You get rid of that little blur down on the left. Yeah.
there you go.
And, that is absolutely, and what I do love, I really do love the distinct layers, the foreground vegetation, the middle ground, and then the background. They all have distinctive levels of focus. And it frames the bird in so nicely. That foreground sharpness just really holds that bird right in between those areas. And to me, it works really well.
One of the little tricks that I do when you have just that instance that Dave was talking about there is to get that background just a little bit deeper, but to build some depth in it. I would look at this, forget the bird, I'm drawing through the bird here. I would take this area and darken it a little bit more. I would take this area and darken it even just a little bit. I maybe would lighten this just a hair. So we've kind of created this tree standing out from the background a little bit. We've got this multiple, think about what a mountain in the end of the day, how we got these layers of different density, different brightness across the different hills. And that's kind of what we're trying to do. And if you get just a little bit, this is all pretty much the same brightness from here to here. If this area was darker and this area was, well, this area is a little darker than this area and this area being lighter, I think you just create that three-dimensional feeling that's so subtle, but the bird will stand out from that even more.
Mm.
And it makes it more, say it with me now, more better.
More better.
More better. But right off the bat, we said all these things that you can fix, but the capture itself is fantastic.
Yeah.
It is, isn't it? It's a great story. We're right there in their face. Yeah.
I just love how crisp, sharp it is. The dimensionality of the image. I think do the things we talked about, add a presentation. and it should do real well.
Could be a winner, huh? I even like the little, I don't know if it's water or sand or something kicking
Yeah.
up from the
Yeah.
feet back there. Shows some good action. Cool. Good stuff. Good titling too, by the way, Maker. I think that's cool. Okay, you now have claustrophobia. Dave, what do you think?
It's a neat image. It definitely pulls you right in. Um, I like the tonality of it. Um, the composition on the left, that little mound is kind of interesting. Um, I realize this is an impossible scene to light and not have speculars everywhere, but for me, competition wise, I think it's going to struggle because you do have so many speculars that draw your attention so many places that it's going to have a hard time holding your attention and pulling you where you need to go. Um, you've got, of course, the three big light sources are all so bright, and then you've got right up here, it's just so hot, and then this is also hot. It's nicely presented and it's interesting, but I think it's for me it's so busy that I have a hard time finding a place to land visually.
Yeah, I have to agree. Rick, go ahead and talk
Yeah.
about our impact story.
Yeah. We've got this area as being kind of the main subject area, and it's pretty much bullseye. And I was noticing off to the left how we're a little bright here. So I think we can either crop in or just tone that down. But I was looking at a crop from the right, and maybe sometimes a bullseye composition is okay. So what if we maybe considered a square crop?
Just in the middle area. Something like that there.
Yeah, kind of something like that, maybe. And because we have a lot of information off to the right and to the left, and how much is it adding to the image? And and it's and the way you cropped it is really nice because it isn't really bullseye, but it's still an interesting composition because now more than whatever this subject is, cave, whatever it is. Now we have a study of light and shadow. And this might be something to maybe think about black and white.
Black and white, yeah.
I have that button right here. There we go. Yeah, that's a good point. I think it is a very interesting situation, and but the full image as we saw presented. Let's go back there real quick here. There's a lot going on. Let me center that. Whoops, wrong tool. Come on. I always get in the middle of the show. I get to this point where it's okay. Come on, let me go back to Photoshop. Oh, for crying out loud. This happens to me every show. Get rid of that. Do that. Look at that. It comes back every time. Okay, well, never mind. Yeah, what you said. There must be some combination of things I do at the point in the show when what did I do? And I can't undo it. So anyways, I just think there's a lot going on here with the textures and the lines and the curves and lots of the same color. So going back to that square feeling that we had there, and I'm gonna see if I can try and get back to Photoshop. That might play it down and give us. I think this feels like it gives us a little more depth.
And I just get more of an industrial feel of that image in black and white.
Yeah.
And the composition definitely holds your attention better this way.
Yeah.
Because you're not pulled so many places, seeing all the extraneous elements, that whole area over here to the right, all this just draws so much attention. So with that crop that you did, and the crop worked really nice because it didn't put this in the middle. It brought it down to the lower right a little bit, which made it a little bit more interesting. And created, I guess, some nice movement this way, and then this diagonal held it also, and then this frame right through here, right through here. Everything just kind of framed it in like that, um, with the elements you have. So it almost creates a natural vignette, which I think works really well.
This is called Desert Sculptures. Dave, I'll let you jump right in.
Um, Beautiful, nice composition. Uh, this has very nice contrast. I think it's not overdone, it's not underdone. It's just really, really beautiful. Um, I like the crop on it, um, with I guess a good ratio of sky to foreground. Um, Love the color harmony with it, and the line movement of those buttes. It's just really cool. It it pulls you right in and right up, to where you want to go. Um, I think the presentation works very nicely. Um, if I was looking at anything that I might consider would be possibly cropping off a little bit on this right side, and only because of this area right in here. Um,
So you go in that far, huh?
I don't know if I would or not, but my concern is that you've got such beautiful line work on all the feet of the butte, and then you come over here and this all this rock, just loose rock, and it might be okay, even just coming over in this area, um, but this loose rock really pulls your eye away from all the beautiful texture and things that are going on everywhere else.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? I'm just playing with this real quick here. This one, if we can go even this far over. Let me go and lose the mat altogether because that's easier for me to see. Because
For me, what happens there, and it may not be overall as interesting, but it really brings that. I guess I was fascinated when I went out west and I saw the way that these are formed, and they look like dragon feet to me, and it's just so powerful. And I think by losing that loose rock to the right, it just really pulls you right into that main butte and really holds your attention.
yeah, this is kind of one of those hard crops, I think, difficult, I should say, because if we try and eliminate this stuff in here, this is a wonderful leading line. Is a little
It
bit of a
is,
curve, takes us in, lets us see this, and comes to the
yeah,
main here. And the minute I cut that off, even if I leave some of it, it just feels crowded.
yeah. I don't disagree with that.
Yeah, so that's a tough one right there. I'm not sure what to tell you in this. But I do love the long narrow. Come on, give me Photoshop. I do like the long narrow, the horizontal crop, the
Yeah,
wonderful depth. Look at the color palette through here. I mean, there's violets and blues, you got yellows and greens and the reds and even
yeah,
the browns. I mean, that's just way cool back there, and all this points that direction. So
absolutely.
how about if the maker just to take like this area and just take the density, darken it,
Yeah.
maybe
That
more
might
of
help.
this kind of density.
Yep.
Anything you want to add to it, Rick?
Yeah, I'm impressed with this image because of the exposure. I'm looking at all of the values in this image,
Well, no kidding.
and they're really handled well, man. You would think, okay, some of those clouds have to be blown out. None of them are.
Right.
We're seeing nice detail uh, in the shadowed areas. Tones are handled nicely, but I do agree totally that bottom right corner could be toned down. But really a very nice image, just good tonal value throughout the image.
Absolutely.
I'm looking at something too. So let me ask you guys this one, and this is just something that caught my eye. This blue cloud, does that bother you? Would you do anything about that?
Which one?
Upper
Upper
left
left.
corner, that's kind of circular
Oh,
pattern there. Does that bother you at all? Is that anything you would um I don't know, I'm just wondering if maybe even just we got a lot of gorgeous sky. Do we need all of it?
I think that's definitely stronger.
Still got a lot of
I don't know.
depth.
I, yeah, if anything, I would probably just tone down the highlight. Let's see
I
if
just
I'm,
so
yeah,
yeah, so I just see this it's one of those things, once you see it, it's there. It's this circle that sees so, but then we have
right.
That and
circular
this,
pattern and the rest of it is, I
Yeah,
don't
I would just blend that in.
know. Okay. And then even little things, again, turning this upside down, which is that little
yeah,
cloud.
that little thing. Once you mentioned the upper left corner, then that little thing popped right out to me as much so as this. So
Well, and how many times has this happened, guys, when you're sitting on a panel and an image comes up and you're just like, wow, look at this. And then one judge will make a comment about, look at that little thing there, and it just ruins you. Oh, come
yeah,
on. Let me out of the tool. There
Yeah,
we go. And it
you
just
can't.
ruins you because it's like that's all you can see now. So again, I'm just looking at trying to, okay, let's do something about that before it gets in front of a panel of jurors. But I think this is absolutely beautiful. The color harmony is just amazing in here. I mean, absolutely stunning all the way through, like we mentioned, the tones, the textures. Yeah, I would darken this lower right-hand corner, just we talked about. I think that's about the best thing you can do. Just a little bit. You can't go too far, or it'll look like a problem. It's got to be just
yeah,
subtle, but
Yeah,
definitely take that down a little bit more. I think it'll allow you to come in the scene. So very cool piece.
very cool.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. The other question. Hang on, let me open that up. Well, let's do this. Um, the question the maker asked me was, "What? How about black and white?" There, here's the same thing in black and white.
You know, the color palette is so beautiful in color,
yeah,
and and normally black and white on landscape really works, but this has such beautiful tonality um, in the whole left side of the image, um, or whole left two-thirds, that
Right,
Hi.
I would hate to lose that just because
Hi,
of the right
Silly.
corner.
Time.
right.
How
Here's your
you
black and
doing?
white.
Huh?
Here's your
What are you
color.
doing?
Hey, Michelle, you're broadcasting.
Yeah, if you're
Oh,
Michelle, if you
sorry.
feel your mic. No, that's fine. Yeah, so just a thought. I mean, the black and white is always cool, but I think in this case, the color really helps it. But I will say this in the black and white tones, so maker, you can use this as an idea. We have the same tones. Let me get my little pen back out here. The same tones all the way through here. But look at what happens when we go to black and white. Black and white. I have to get rid of that to do this. There we go. How you can have this a little bit lighter and tone this down, and it will work just fine. You can get this area here down into more of the density, the brightness of this lower level right here. And I think that would be, so that's one good thing that would happen for the black and white. Again, I would eliminate or tone down this upper left corner, but black and white would work, I think, too. But the color does all those pretty tones in there. That's pretty rare right there. I think that would go with that just for that reason right there.
Yeah, because it has such beautiful color contrast, cool to warm, and so many different ranges of color, as you mentioned earlier, Jeff.
Yeah. Yeah, it is kind of, I mean, for all the landscapes we've seen over the years, there's definitely a unique color palette for landscape to go almost all the way through the whole rainbow there. Okay, so let's move on here. We have elegance amidst golden blossoms. So we have that in there. Dave, what do you think?
Very pretty. I like the placement of the subject. Um, the the bird, the size, everything works. I think fine. I like the movement of the visually. These elements are soft enough, and there's almost a diagonal or a horizontal blurring that pulls you right into the bird. Um, Probably my biggest concern is the overall brightness. The bird definitely would need to be toned down quite a bit to get to gain some of the texture back in the feathers. There's nice textures in this area, but pretty much throughout most of the body, there's almost no texture. So
Yeah.
we would need to somehow bring that back in and hope that the original capture had texture there.
I like it. I like this technique when you get very shallow depth of field with some softness in the foreground, softness in the background. I think it just kind of really puts the subject in a place that's just unique from what we normally see. However, every time I've seen something like this in competition, it tends to get nailed because of well, it's out of focus and it's out of focus, and we only see one leg and not both legs, and it's kind of I guess I'll say the word challenge for the maker to submit because I'm afraid you might hear those things. Um, doesn't mean they're right or wrong. That's just something that I've heard quite often that in this kind of a situation you're going to hear is they wish the bird was not behind these flowers. But man, what a great capture! Like Dave said, the work on the tone, the detail, and the bird, the feathers are a little bit, but even the matte color is nice. Good placement. Anything you want to add, Rick, to that?
Just maybe, coming in and taking care of this blurred uh, uh,
Oh, yeah.
vertical element there. But I agree with everything else that was said.
Very cool. Okay. Next we have this artist has some good titles. Gear coming down. Coming in for a landing. What do you think, Dave?
Oh, I like this. It's and they are great titles. Um, I like it. I like the um, where all the arrangement of the birds is very nice and natural. Um, I like the clouds and the softness of the clouds and the sharpness of the birds. Um, I do wonder if color tone wise, if maybe we were a little warm and it's making the birds just a little muddy. Um, so if we neutralize that color just a little bit, and I could be off on that, but it just feels that way.
It's a little darker, maybe something more like just lighten it a little bit. Lose that color in the sky is all, but
Yeah. Yeah,
I
the,
think
the warmth in the sky is nice, but in the birds, it tends to make them just a little on the muddy side, although it still holds good texture everywhere. So I'm not sure that I would do much to that. And then presentation wise, I would definitely just you need a little bit of presentation to make it
right,
work.
right.
Um, might blend the cloud back. These just blend that a little bit more. This is all just totally softened out, and this is a little bit more defined, which kind of just draws your eye back over to that light corner. So
Sure.
might might blend that a little bit.
Yeah, and I almost wonder if get the birds maybe into this tonal range, but leave the sky in this
Leave the
tonal.
sky, yeah, if you can.
Drop that corner. I think that would be a winner there.
Absolutely.
And again, I'll go back and forth in this one. You think the direction that they're flying is okay? Do
I
you
like
think
it.
Do you think, because I've heard judges say, well, if you're going to look left to right, the birds should be going left to right, in their opinion. Again, different judge. Rick, what do you think on
No,
this
I think
that
I
topic?
think that I think that the way that it's composed is handled well. We really need to consider these full bleeds to have the presentation that Dave was talking about. And there are exceptions to everything. We saw that a couple months ago in one image that was a beautiful landscape, and uh, we all, I think, concurred that didn't need presentation. As a matter of fact, that particular image would have looked great on a metal, printed on metal. So there are exceptions to it, but generally speaking, we want to have some kind of a presentation because, we could be talking about three or four or more points that'll take it to the next level.
Right, and I did get a message from a maker earlier today that there was a few images that they just didn't get to doing the presentation, so they're aware of it. But yeah, so what a difference it would make to have um, a presentation on this. I don't know more I could add. I think you guys hit it pretty well. I do kind of lean towards it. Keep looking at the little Photoshop um, thing that I did. Picture this tone in the birds, but this tone in the sky. You could easily do
Yeah.
a mask. I think that would make the bird stand out. It would keep it from having this overall. I feel like there's an overall goldish yellow cast to it. Um, but cool placement, good capture. Um, you see their eyes nice and clear, which is always a good thing on this kind of thing, and really unique presentation or composition, I should say. So
Yeah.
good stuff. Okay, we then have very powerful portrait called Intense. Rick, what do you think?
Yeah. Yeah, it certainly is. I enjoy the square crop on this. I mean, we've got really nice um, directional lighting coming in, and I always like to use the term that light should sculpt the subject, and it doesn't really matter if it's a portrait, a human that's being photographed, or a landscape, or a still life. Light is, to me, should sculpt the subject, and this really does that. We've got this strong light that's coming in from camera left and a really nice kicker off of camera right. I would recommend that maybe we come in and tone down the shoulders, actually both shoulders, um, that would help to keep us right into the eyes. The cropping across the top of the head, I think, is just fine because now we have the eyes on the third level of the image. But just really well handled.
Dave, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree. It's a very compelling image. The whole time Rick was talking, I'm really just drawn right into the eyes. I'm held there. It's like a staring contest. I mean, it's just really holds your attention. All the things that Rick mentioned, I agree with. I think you could easily tone down those shoulders a little bit. I love the texture in the hair, the texture in the skin is handled very nicely. Um, I think the hands, the pose of the hands and the placement of the hands work very, very well. Um, I think the highlights are handled nicely. I think they've done a little bit of work from the other night when this was talked about. I think they toned down a little bit more of the area below the the subject's right eye. And I don't know if it was this image that had a bracelet,
Yeah,
um,
I think it was. Yeah.
but they toned that area down nice, and so it doesn't pull your eye down there. You're really held right into that face, and that's a sign of a really successful image to me is one that holds your attention and you can't look away.
Well said, guys. I agree 100%. I think this is something that's so powerful. And I know we chatted with the maker last week about the actual story, and that would make it even more powerful if there's a way to convey it. But it was a tough one. But it's not having that story behind it. I think the maker's done a fabulous job of creating still a very powerful, very, very poignant portrait, and it draws you into the eyes, and you wonder what is he thinking about. So. Good job on that. I don't know why I want to hit the pause button so badly tonight. I just keep going. I'd hit it, not notice it. We'd go for half the show and then it would be on pause. So that wouldn't be good. Okay, next we have just another day in the high country. Dave, what do you think?
Oh, wow. Beautiful. Uh, I love the play of the flowers in the lower left against that warm sky in the upper right. Just really is dynamic. And then the depth, that little highlight area right across the middle of the brighter weeds. Um, wow, just beautiful. Very well done, very well presented. Um, I don't, I'm sitting here looking. Probably the only thing that really I might try to figure out, I'm not sure what to do with it, but this little area right here is so bright, you might tone that brightness in the sky down just a little bit because it does pull your attention. But the rest of it, I mean, it your eye is pulled where it needs to be, and it's a beautiful scene.
Rick, you want to add?
Oh man, yeah, this thing is off the charts for me. Impact, definitely impact, and the lens selection, the time of day that it was taken. We to have such beautiful soft light on the foliage that's coming in, and then it's balanced by the rendition of the sky. And I couldn't think of a better presentation, color or technique for this image. That's gorgeous.
Lots of nice.
Maybe
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry, toning down just a little bit the red, uh, just a little bit. But man, this thing is gorgeous.
Lots of great layers here. We've got these flowers in the foreground. We have these other layer of yellow. Then we have the green trees, and we have the hillside, and the mountains, and we have the sky, and then we have a whole other story going on in here. The story, yeah, a lot of great layers in here. Cool. It's cool.
Nice.
It's nice.
Just needs my name in the lower right corner instead of beautiful. There you go.
How about we'll do Dave? How's that? That's as far as I can write with this pen. Lean, mean fishing machine. That's almost scary. Look at that expression and the half-eaten fish there. Like this guy means business. He means business. This is kind of a tough one. I think this subject, the story, the capture, lots of good impact, lots of good story there. There's so many reflections going on, all the light, water, the reflection of the animal. It's unfortunate. It's pulling us away from the story. I mean, sometimes we get these situations where we were right there and it happens. We get the long lens out and we capture this great story, but sometimes the rest of the elements of the scene probably aren't strong for competition. Um, yeah, and it's hard because in little stuff like you have just the little bits of, get my little pen here, these little leaves popping out. Again, stuff happens, but it's just adding to, it's not necessary in between the story of the fish and the otter. I think it's an otter. I don't know my animals too well. I know what a dog is. That's good. Um, and then also you kind of think, well, it's almost as, or have we cut it here? Is there more? Is it necessary to have more? Or maybe even a square format. Let me do that real quick and see if that.
Yeah, square could definitely help with minimizing some of those reflections that are pulling your eye away. Um,
Even make it, it's kind of an intense story, so I don't mind making it a tighter crop
Right,
because
right.
we have this eating scene going on. I'd probably crop up a little more to get rid of the,
get that little nice yeah, there you go.
yeah.
Yeah, I think by cropping it like you did, Jeff, it what it does is it ties the two subjects together so much better, ties
Right.
the story together so much better, um, because now we're really held to the connection to I think it's an otter as well to the fish, and it gets rid of a whole lot of distractions and all those reflections that were going on in the
Yeah, and
ripples.
you know what happens too with that crop, which is yeah, we definitely needed to come up from the top and the bottom. But now we've created what I call diagonally opposed compositions. So we have our
Whoa.
main
Yeah.
subject here, and then we've got this diagonal relationship between the two, which is very, very strong.
Well, I think if you came in and just kind of cleaned up um, these little areas here, and you could take this out, and that's cool. And then you literally could darken this third of the image here, and I think the water, the fish, all that can take that. This is the you could even go a little deeper on the tone of the back of the animal here. Excuse me, to bring that face out, but I think this whole third could easily go darker, which would help this, help the fish, and give it a little bit more. And what we're trying to do is to bring that attention, like Rick said, the dynamic symmetry here. That well, I was going to say from face to face, but there's no face there on that fish. So
Yeah.
carcass to animal. It brings them closer together in the story. So this could be kind of cool. And of course, we can always go and look at just real quick since black and white works all the time. Um, just play with that for a second, see if we can't give it a little punch that way. So there's all kinds of other things that we can do to change the tones of the background because of the colors that they're there. And then again, I'd tone the fish down a little bit. So that's just another thought right there. All right. So I don't know if people leave the show thinking, what a bunch of jerks. They don't know nothing. We just totally butchered their image. Or they're going, wow, that was cool. Thank you so much for that. It's just our opinion, right or wrong or indifferent is beside the point. It's just our opinion. So we now have, oh, this is cool, Majestic Mountain.
Oh,
Dave, go
wow.
ahead. What do you think?
Um, very cool Ansel Adams look image. Can you crop that border off, Jeff?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a little bit strong.
I know in the world of art galleries that typically images are in white mats, and I'm not opposed to that, but because this image has so much, I see a lot of warm tones in here. See cooler tones up in here. Definitely cool tones in here. That white was just pulling me away.
Yeah.
I love the movement of this image. I love the sweep that you get from the mountains. I love the sweep that you get from here. Um, the texture in the rock faces is really nice. What probably concerns me the most is the just black pine forest in the foreground. I would love to see a little something still there. It just went black, and it almost looks like two separate images, even. Um, and I would just love to see that have just a little bit more texture and tonal range in it. It's a very cool image, very powerful image, um, and I would seriously consider some other presentation other than just the pure white matte.
But if I lighten up those tones even more in the foreground, we're going to get we're getting the red tones because of they're underexposed. Um,
Yeah,
but something more like that is you're looking because now you have just a little bit of depth.
yeah, and it appeared to be a black and white image to me to start with, although there was warm and cool tones in it. But I think black and white, this is more of a black and white look to me.
Right.
And then you could lighten those tones up in the foreground a little bit um, without picking up color so much.
It's funny, and again, this is what we say. I kind of like this silhouette of the trees because it gives us a framing element. I like that it's got a curve to it. which goes with all the soft lines that we have going on the mountain, the cloud element keeping us down into the scene. So I don't mind this moody feeling. And even the road, and I almost kind of wonder if that maybe could be a little bit, just a tiny bit lighter to really give us the direction for our viewer to come into the scene, to welcome them into the scene. I do agree. I'm gonna go back to Photoshop real quick here, that making it just a little bit, let's see, let's do this here. A little bit lighter and still give the ominous feeling of it, but yeah, I don't mind the trees kind of being a silhouette. I think it lets us see that they're there. It's a strong part of the scene, but it really frames the mountain.
Yeah.
What do you think, Rick?
Yeah,
There's always this too, black and
I
white.
was gonna say I'd probably get my butt kicked on a panel, but I think the trees need to be as heavy and dark as they are because there's this relief of the road that's leading into it. And, that just gives me, number one, dimensionality to the photograph, and two, much more of a storytelling to it because we're on this road in this ominous foreground and then coming through and into this beautiful scene. So there's quite a story in it, as I perceive it.
Yep, yep. And I think as you saw, I switched it to black and white, which is cool. But I think the little bit of color in that we've got the blue tones in the sky and a little bit of the rocks and the warm tones over here, I think helps with depth, helps with the feeling of the whole story. So I wouldn't go black and white in this. So that's what we think.
It's a beautiful rendition of the mountains over there.
Yeah.
It does have great movement.
So we're doing pretty well here. We still have a few to go, but we're good. Um, must I tell you again? No, let me say it again. Must I tell you again? Dave, thoughts? Very cool, huh?
Yeah, it's very interesting. Uh,
Probably a reportage category is what I'm guessing.
yeah, I would think so. Um, the the design of the image, the just that peak exploding from the bottom, just is powerful, and it kind of exploding kind of follows right through the main and or the mains and even the faces as they start to distort a little bit from the movement and the interaction between the two. Love the tonality in the horses themselves. Um, if anything, I think the lower right or the right side of the image maybe has a little bit of information that doesn't really help or add anything. This area right here just so I don't know if we could crop and make it better, but I love for me, what the story is really right there. That's where all the power is. Uh, but I love the texture and the movement and the capture uh, of the horses.
What do you think about the black mat?
I think it's a little heavy, um, particularly with the bottom weight on it.
You're saying maybe something in here more, a little more?
Yeah, I think so. I think because the
Yeah.
story is between the two faces and the body movement a little bit, creating the base works real well. It gives you diagonals coming into both sides, so it does explode upward. But I think that's much stronger than um, leaving, particularly the back quarters of the
Right.
horse on the right. There wasn't a lot of area of interest there, so I think this is much stronger. And then, like I said, that mat to me, the mat may be just a little big, a little heavy, and particularly I would probably go away from being bottom weighted.
Yeah. Well, I think this still has a base too, so it has a nice strength to it, but it brings us into if you look at this, like you said, there's a lot of horse to get by and the black mat, but if you get into here, I think now we're right into those faces. Look at the intensity in the eyes and the no even the nose being all scrunched up and the teeth showing. Just beautiful tonal range. Look at that through the hair, all the darks to the lights. The background is just perfect for the color tone of a nice. I like that there's even a little bit of a hillside in the background that's so subtle it doesn't take away, but it's giving us a little depth. Ricky, what
And
do you
you
want
could
to add?
use some of those. You could use some of those deeper tones as your matte color versus black, um, where the black is just so pure and rich and deep. By going with some of those deeper grays,
Like in here,
it
maybe.
might, I think, keep you into the image instead of pulling you out to the matte.
Yeah, you could use a color like in here that would be coordinated, but not
little more of a neutral color, I think. And
even more neutral than that. That's like in maybe in here.
yeah, we're right about where you were is fine, but my thoughts were, the power of this image is wow. In the capture of the eyes, the open mouths, and then it was mentioned, this pyramidal or triangular composition that is really strong.
Yeah.
On the previous rendition with the mat, I noticed that the key line was attached, and probably be a good idea to either pick a different tonal value of key line so we can see it all the way around if it's attached, or just separate it or detach it a little bit. But this is because you can see where we lose it up on top here.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a
Beautiful.
that's a really cool image.
Isn't that cool? What a great
It
story.
is.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Then we have Painted by Nature. Dave, what do you think?
Wow, it's very interesting. It's such a cool abstract art piece. I've used the term a lot tonight, but I love the color palette on this. I like the line work, the movement created by rock and nature. Um, with the rock going so many different directions, it creates a lot of movement, and then the color just pulls you through the image, and then it frames it very nicely. I think it's a beautiful abstract art piece. I like the way it's presented, and I think it works.
Rick.
Yeah, I enjoy the color palette as well. A couple things that a little bit of a concern for me. I just felt that it was a little bit oversaturated, a little too contrasty. And I understand we have these, this subject matter that's rough and craggy, and I get that. I just feel that it's just a little bit oversaturated. And then the concern again with the key line, in certain areas we see it really well, but then at the bottom of the image it's just totally lost. And again, we're talking about one or two or three elements that are involved in an image that if they're applied in a different situation or in a way that's more advantageous to the image itself, then we're going to see an image score that much more or that much better.
And this might be a good place to do what they did in that other image, pull the key line away from the image about a quarter inch, and that way it's it's away from the image so that you don't lose the line where the color matches, but it doesn't go all the way out to the edge of the frame either.
Right.
So, it's maybe a third out from the image on the inside, two-thirds out from the image from the outside in.
Mhm.
Yeah, this is very, very strong, very good feeling. I mean, you come into the scene, there's lots of movement, but it works. I do think the saturation maybe is a little bit much, not knowing obviously what the original scene is, but let's just back it off a tiny bit. This still gives us the um, feeling of this colorful, unique scene, but and again, we're just guessing. We maybe may be wrong, but here's what was presented, just backing off the saturation a little bit, still gives us a very, very powerful scene, but I think just pulls the color back so it's more supportive than taking over. And that's just us. All right. We now have, okay, there we go. And let's see. This is called Parker the Pup. Nice portrait, Rick. What do you think?
Yeah. Hi, Parker. I like that. I like the image. Um, we've got really good exposure because I'm seeing definition in the coat of the little guy. In terms of the platform or whatever, if we try think in terms of color key, we notice how nice the background is keyed with the color of the coat of the dog, and also in the presentation. And then we have this cool color that the dog is resting on. And I'm just seeing, a little bit of a contrast that might be just kind of imagine if this platform or whatever pillow, whatever the dog is on, had some of the tonal values that we see in the background or even in the coat of the dog, then everything would be in key. In addition to that, either cropping up a little bit or toning down this area here where it's encroaching on the border of the image. And I think Parker is just a little tiny bit big in the frame, but beautiful image as far as the lighting and the exposure and the handling uh, of the textures in the coat.
Dave, go ahead. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I really love the face, love the expression, love the light on the face. Um, Handled very nicely. Fur's got beautiful texture. I love the colors in the face. And I totally agree with what Rick was saying about the base. The what subject's on is kind of out of kilter or out of keeping with the the subject itself. And I think some things that you could do to help that a lot would just be to use a blur tool. For one, I think the sharpness level, particularly the pattern in that blanket,
Yeah.
could be softened a lot by just using it like a blur tool or a vignette to kind of soften the base. And then if you wanted to do a color brush or a color burn to to change the tonality of that to match more to the background, I think it would definitely help um, keep your eye in there. And I agree again with Rick what he said about um, it's just a little tight um, composition. It certainly wouldn't hurt to give him just a little bit of room around the dog.
Yep, I agree with everything that's been said. And I would think it's easy enough. I would suggest cropping it up like we showed, get rid of that white stripe at the bottom. But you could easily, because you have a gray blanket there, you could easily put a color into that and bring it more into the tone of the pup. Or not knowing the situation, if it's something you wanted to use for competition, I would definitely even reshoot it. Because you got beautiful lighting, beautiful expression. The dog's just like, here I am. But yeah, that gray just keeps pulling us down. The rest of it is just very strong. Peaceful feeling. Dave, thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's a very peaceful scene. The water being that calm where you're getting no ripples, no movement. You're seeing right through to the bottom. Um, it's probably a nice portrait of the rocks. The overall scene is neat, but I think it tends to be more about the water and the rocks. Um, and to me, it just has a little, I guess, a vignette that's pretty heavy on both the right and left side of the image, and it makes it such a strong vertical. Your eye visually just goes straight up. I mean, it's just boy, my straights aren't very good, are they? So it
Great.
goes straight up in a crooked line. Now it just all held right there, and I think it it makes it not as interesting as it could be because I think we're pulled out to places that don't have anything for us to really look at back there. I think all the interest is in the rocks and the foreground elements.
Yeah, I think we kind of just playing with the levels adjustment there. Let me just clear the colors real quick there. Um, I like to tone the deep, rich colors, but it is seemingly a little bit. It gets so deep in these corners, even actually all four corners, that it is actually more obvious than necessary. It's not subtle. Obviously, the matte color changed, but look at the image itself. We have just a little bit more detail in here and in the woods. And I'm looking at even crazy, like we do crazy here. What if we were to even have something that was more like this? Play up the rocks and the water and the color, but let's bring the top down and maybe let these two little guys back here be the background of the scene. But now we've kind of kept us into this area, and I'm looking at the thumbnail too. And I don't know, just a thought that we could maybe even come up just a hair more like here. So it's really about the rocks and their environment, and these two little trees back here. Just these two little guys right here are the support. I mean, we got some repeating patterns here, which is nice. But then the darkness in here is natural. It doesn't pull you out. I still might lighten this side of this up a little bit, probably the vignette on this oil is that, but I wouldn't make this as light as the rest of it. I like that it because this does show some depth into the woods there, so the rocks stand out. Just a thought. And then, of course, we can always look at what does black and white do. And, because sometimes these kind of Ansel Adams-ish um, pieces can definitely play nicely in black and white. And let's play with the color tones to see if we can get some punch in those rocks. See, I can bring out a little bit of green in the leaves up there. I don't know. I'm way out on a limb here, so to speak.
No, actually, I
I
think you said better than I was because what my concern was that all the information, all the interest was in the rocks in the foreground, and we kept getting drawn up into the trees, which didn't have a lot
Yeah.
visually to pull it to be interesting. So by the crop that you've done, I think it pulled us a lot more into the rocks.
There.
I probably liked it better in color. Um, I thought I was going to like it better in black and white, but I think the rock becomes so powerful where the greenish cast in the water and the muted color of the rock to me holds better here than it did in the black and white. But I do like this crop much better. And then you could just fix a couple of little areas like that. And like I said, you could lighten up the two sides a little bit. I might bring this area down just a little bit. As I lighten these up, I might bring this down just a little to hold to
Right.
not pull your eye up out of there to hold you in here.
And as I go into stuff like this, I might even do things like I might darken, lighten up this corner so somebody, but I might darken this part of the
Yeah,
water right here, but then bring out a little highlight on this rock. So you've got this stepping stone. So you come in here, step on this, and then go over to here, and then you've got these three rocks. Maybe even lighten that rock just a little bit. But like Dave said, darken that, make it more darker. Um, but I mean, I think the brightness of these weeds along the water is just enough to kind of give us okay, you can look here, but come back to the rocks kind of a
yeah,
feel.
yeah, I agree.
Rick, want to add?
Well, this has to be the crop, in my opinion, because the original version, that horizon line was almost dead center, and that was really problematic for me. And then two other things, I think the matte color really isn't helping it, as is the key line not helping it.
Yeah, the key line definitely is asking for too much attention. All right, Maker, you got your work cut out for you. Hope we help. Returning from the battle. Ooh, very cool story. Dave, thoughts?
Yeah, neat, neat image. Love the placement of the plane within the frame. Um, from from my screen, it doesn't look sharp. I don't know if it is or not, but um, if it is on your screen, that's good. That would help a lot. But from my screen, the plane doesn't look particularly sharp. I love the base on this, the mountain base, the plane coming out of the smoke. When I was out in Colorado on one of my trips, we came through a forest fire that was pretty serious and pretty close to right where we were, and sat and watched um, planes dumping water and picking up water for 2 or 3 hours. It was compelling just to sit there and watch. It's very interesting, but I like the design of this. I think you could crop a little bit off the top if you wanted, to make it a little bit stronger. We don't probably don't need quite that much sky, but it's got a nice balance, as is, and the placement of the plane is nice within the frame.
Rick.
I'll tell you what I like about this image is the hue, the color. It has such a vintage look to it. Um, I'm trying to think of that film that had that kind of hue to it. Uh, but anyway, that aside, just really a neat image that in capturing a story that's being told. So with the presentation, I think this is something that I'm looking to see the sharpness, and looks okay to me. But in terms of the cropping, I like what you've done with the cropping. I think I might just come in a little bit more from the right. Uh,
Yeah, I put the plane right in the middle of the scene there.
yeah,
We've got a lot of good smoke coming in. Maybe
there
a
you
good
go.
starting, something like that.
There you go. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, because it still tells the story.
Yeah, and the smoke gives it that color cast because it just the sun coming through that much smoke. It's amazing how it affects everything around.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm wondering too, Dave, about the sharpness. Um, that this with the smoke in there, it's just going to not allow sharp edges to appear sharp in
It very much could be,
yeah. I'm just
but
looking.
yeah, you've got on my screen. It looks like the treetops are sharp.
Yeah, that's true. I see it along in here. It's definitely sharp. I was gonna just try something with a little different color feeling, go into a deeper shadow in the tree there. Plane's going a little dark, but now we have more of that fire color. Um, we're inventing our own vocabulary here, the fire color. No, there was such a term, but I guess there is now, right?
There is now.
I don't know. We're
Well,
just playing.
judges were never shy about making their own words up
Isn't
and
that
terms.
true? Isn't that true? Maybe changing the elements of design because that's what came to our lips at that moment. But
Absolutely.
but I think it's a great story here. I mean, I do think that the images, the trees are sharp, and the plane is questionable. But I think you could sell it with the smoke and all that. But I think good suggestions there on maybe the cropping and again maybe cropping off the right. The other thing that's kind of weird, and we usually don't do this in competition, and I think it's just what happens when you look through, um, flame, how we've lost the
Yeah.
sharpness over here. But because it's a little bit of more of a distortion, again, judges don't do this. They don't have that option to do this, so don't panic. make them. Sorry. Yeah. Um, just we can do it. We have a license to do that, but just to make our. But again, I think cropping it over somewhere over here, like we showed, will take this out of a judge's questionable area. So if that makes any sense at all. Okay. So we have just a few more beautiful images to go. All right, so this one here is called, and I'm going to explain this first. This is a title that I don't know what it is. I talked to the maker about, so this is correct. So, but it'll also kind of feed into the conversation about titling. This is called Shadowmancer. Maybe somebody knows what it means out there. I just don't. I'm not saying it's wrong. Anyways, so let's talk about the image, and then we'll talk about titles in a minute, because that's a huge thing that Rick and I like to talk about. Dave, what do you think?
Again, we talk about stories. This is a powerful story. Looks like the cat's definitely hunting. I like the placement of the cat within the frame. Overall, I think I would struggle on a panel to score it real high because of the lighting on the cat itself. The face is about the only thing that's really getting any light. The rest of the scene is pretty much going into just shadow, and which gives it a cooler tone. The fact that the cat's face is lit, I'd love to see it pop out a little bit more, since it does have some light on it, and the rest of the frame doesn't. But it's it's a neat story.
Rick, what do you think?
Yeah, well, we talked about presentation, so just bringing that up, I think, is sufficient to
Sorry, Maker.
to consider something along that line. There's there's just a mysterious look to this image that I'm enjoying, and we mentioned this earlier. That that's why you have so many on a panel, and we've mentioned this before many times. If all of us agree all the time, then not all of us needs to be here. But
true, though. Very true.
Absolutely.
I'm captivated by it, quite frankly, because just that little hint of light on the cat, and Dave mentioned it really quite well, that on the hunt, he's coming out of his seclusion or out of his dark area into the hunt, and then we see again another hint of light here, and we talked about this diagonal composition, diagonally opposed. So it's intriguing for me, but I think it's just falling short with the presentation, and it might be a little heavy on the density, because you did lighten it up just a little, Jeff, and
Yeah.
that was interesting.
Let me pull up another levels. I was trying to do the old click trick, but it was drastic. So let's go a little more subtle.
The longer it sits here, the more it grows on me too, in the sense of what Rick was saying is it's kind of mysterious. And once I thought more about the story, the cat's hiding in the shadows,
Right.
and his face is just starting to come out of the shadows to attack or to hunt. So, the longer I look, the more I'm sold on the story. I still think technically it's fallen just a little bit short with the exposure, the density, and presentation. But it is a wonderful story.
Yeah, I think there's definitely potential here.
What do you think about the crop, guys? I know, and this is again one of those conversations that I remember many, many years of judging, hearing about dirt never scores well. I know it's part of the story, but we've seen some beautifully lit animals in a field where it's just dirt, and that ends up being one of the reasons it doesn't score well. So, and it's of course, unfortunately you can't. Hey, Cat, come over with me. I've got a better scene than this one to photograph you, and you can't do that kind of a thing. But do we get into cropping where, let's just play here, what does that do to our story? Are we still getting, if I go way up here, we're still getting the menacing hunting feeling, make it something a little bit more unique, like something like this.
Well, I'll tell you what, Jeff, to me, those highlights on the bottom of the photograph are really a part of this image.
So
you
down
know,
in this
yeah,
area.
we can do some cropping, but I would still leave, a hint or touch of these highlights. I
So
think that
are you, I mean, you're talking about the water too?
I
no,
would
you can
probably
crop
want to
up.
leave maybe just a little of the water, possibly. I don't know. And then coming on the left some, um, coming over toward those highlights a little bit. Can't come too far because it starts to put the cat too much to
Right,
the center.
Right.
right.
Maybe like
Um,
that.
yeah, I don't know. Maybe coming up more at the bottom, like Rick was saying, uh, would be.
But I think those highlights on the foreground are important.
Maybe something like that there.
Yep.
Because I mean, it still gives us the feeling of the tracking its prey. And
Mhm.
oh, wait, there's that other idea that we never talk about.
I think the color has to go with this one. In meaning it should be in color
Wait now, I'm not
for
done.
me.
I'm going to let Jeff finish playing, but I think I agree with you, Rick.
Okay, fine. All right.
Yeah,
Good
just
advice.
that little bit of warmth in the cat's shoulders and the dirt helps. Just that
Yeah,
little hint.
yeah. I might, little things like maybe toning down or getting rid of some of the roots right there. Roots, whatever. I'm from the Midwest, they're roots.
In
Things
Kentucky,
like
they're still roots.
there's their
I
roots.
guess if you go to
Okay.
Ohio, they're roots.
Yeah. All right. We've hurt this person's feelings enough here. Um, oh, I know. One thing I was going to say, and the question is so much about the Shadow Mancer is the title. I don't even know if I'm saying that right. And it doesn't matter at this point. My point is that it might be the perfect title. It might be correct, but if you get something that's left to center, so to speak, and the judges don't get it, you're now creating this situation where they're going to go, "What? Huh? I don't get it. What's that doing?" It's you're the joke is we don't want to make the judges have to think. We want them to react. And if it's something like this, it's going to take away from it. Might still be a great image, but if they have to go, what was the title? Can you repeat the title? What was it? It's creating that little bit of a barrier there that you don't want. So while that title might be correct for this, and maybe some people get it, some people don't, it's different enough that just think about it that you might want to, okay, is everybody going to get this? I didn't, I'll admit it, but that's what happens sometimes. So
And using shadow in this image is actually good
yeah,
because the body being in the shadows, maybe something telling Wags coming out of the shadows, but would help that story. But that really does help define why the cat's most of it's blue and then the head's not.
yeah, that's true. So the word shadow definitely is helpful, but and
Yeah.
then I've actually judged sometimes and had the dictionary app open on another page, another web page, just in case there was a word that I didn't get because I didn't want to have to say what?
Yeah.
What'd you say?
This
Can you
just
explain?
reminds me of that movie years ago, Apocalypto. If anyone's seen
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Okay, we have Splash and Go. Rick, you want to jump into this one real quick?
Yeah, compositionally, I think we're almost bullseye with the. Well, we are pretty close with the head and the beak, but the whole body is just a tad off center to the right. Maybe if we pulled in from the right a little bit and pulled the bird a little bit more um, off center, and I don't think this would hurt if we cropped up from the bottom and just took the water out because we've got a lot of highlights down there that are commanding attention. There you go. And then the bottom left corner, the cleanup stuff that we always talk about as far as toning down, etc. And as we've been saying, presentation.
Right, and I think there's just a little bit of a where you might lose the detail in the wings,
Yeah,
especially this wing back here, and
right.
again, different calibrated monitor. Um,
And we're looking at a really diffused light situation, and I'm trying to see if we've got any kind of life, or meaning catch light in the eye of the bird.
there is, it's very small as I enlarge. You see, there's a catch light there,
Oh yeah.
but since it's a small eye on a bit large scene. And as I open up and look at this wing again, remember, judges aren't going to do this, guys, so don't panic. But we want to show you that we get just that little bit of area right here. If there's some detail in there, however you can introduce it into the scene, please do, because and then we're even losing detail in some of these wings. A judge in a panel will say something. I can almost promise you that they'll say something about that. And
Yeah.
and there you go. I mean, you don't have a chance to say, "Hey, well, can I go fix it and come back?" No, that wasn't work in this case. So we don't
And
mean,
one
yeah,
of my other concerns, I guess I might leave just a little bit of the water at the bottom on the
okay,
crop. And one of the reasons is because all the water droplets coming off of its feet, and it gives it a base. So I'd consider that.
Yeah, that's
Um,
a good point.
but my other concern is, and I really love the moment of capture. I love the shape of the wings and framing the face. That part works great, and everything you guys have said about the getting more detail in the feathers and all that is important. One of my biggest concerns here is depth of field, and it's usually it's lack of depth of field, but in this case it's too much. I think that sharp row of plants right along the riverbank um, is probably sharper than the bird, and the bird's pretty sharp, but that that whole row, this whole row of plants
yeah,
is just so sharp that it just pulls my attention away from the bird into that, and that kind of hurts because I feel like the bird's obviously on the water, so it should be the sharpest thing, and everything falling off from their back should get softer, and it's not. So maybe soften that a little bit, soften that row of plants down just a little bit, would help it also.
yeah. That's a good call because you can easily soften those just a little bit, not much, but just enough to not have them be as crisp as they look, so the bird's face and the eye stands out just a little bit more. Absolutely, absolutely. Supper cruise.
Neat capture again. Photographing birds is fun and tough. Um, to capture them in flight. Um, I love the color. I love the timing on this with the wings up, the fish in the mouth. Um, Compositionally, the bird's dead center in the frame, so we'd probably want to think about placing it more to the right or taking a whole bunch off behind it. Um, and then it wouldn't hurt my feelings at all to take a little bit off the bottom of this image either. So I could see taking some off the bottom and the right, and I think it would put the bird in a much stronger position,
Mm.
something like that. I like the movement of the water, creating the horizontal blur from the ripples. It almost gives us a motion blur to give the sense of speed even more to the bird. And I really like that. So I think that part works. And then right across the upper, there's a little white line or light line all the way along there. I'd probably crop just that smidge or darken that down to match the rest because that little highlight right at the edge just gives a point of tension.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? And I guess one of those things that I didn't notice that myself, and then when another judge in the panel sees something, all of a sudden everybody's up, yep, there goes a point or two. So little things like that can hurt. Rick, what do you want to add?
Really nothing. I think you gentlemen did a wonderful job.
That's why we get paid the high bucks, the big
Big
bucks.
bucks.
Not as much as Cliff, but we get paid the big bucks.
Well, none of us are worth what Cliff is, but
No, Well, every show we make some comment about how much Cliff makes on this show. He's probably getting tired of us doing that. Sorry, Cliff.
But Jeff and I are seriously considering tripling his pay come next year.
Oh,
Wow.
that'd be great. That'd be great. I
All
appreciate
right.
that.
Well, Cliff, write that down on a post-it note if you wouldn't mind, so we
I
remember.
will.
So
Hey,
what's
Cliff, you got a witness. I heard him say they're going to triple it.
Thank
so
you,
what's
Dave. I
so
appreciate
what's
that.
so what's 3 times 0?
I know. It depends on what math you're using, because I'm afraid the newest math might give him a $30,000 income that we do. All right, this one is called Terror Near the Tower.
Oh, wow.
Dave, thoughts?
Yeah, that's a great story. Powerful. Um, man, what a cool capture. Don't know if it's real, but it looks real and it looks powerful to me. It works. Um, love the lightning bolts and the strikes in many places. Love the wispiness of the rain coming out of the back of that cloud, um, and the lightning just highlighting and defining the silhouette of Devil's Tower. It's just very powerful image.
Well, it certainly is. This is excuse me. For me, defines impact. The silhouette of the tower is handled extremely well. I would not want to see any kind of detail, and I wouldn't think you would anyway. But it just adds to the darkness and mystery of this whole phenomenon. Presentation handled well, very, very captivating.
Yeah, the tower is already ominous in itself, and then you've added something that's even more more powerful. Uh, what do you guys think about the lightning coming right at the border? I know a lot of times we talk about those kind of things pulling your eye away, but in this case, is that I mean, I don't think I'd worry about that. I think it works for this scene. What do you think?
If
Yeah,
I
for me,
were to, Go ahead, Dave.
well, I was just like, for me, and I agree with you, Jeff. Normally things like that at breaking the edge of the frame really bring a point of tension that's disturbing. But in this case, I think it works. It almost shows the endlessness of the lightning and that it can move on for a long, long, long ways outside of this scene, and it it works.
My thoughts were that this phenomenon, and by those strikes touching the edges here on both sides, the story being that nature cannot be contained. And I like that.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah,
I'll write that one. That's a good title, Rick.
that is artistic, Rick. Where'd you come up with that?
Well, you guys laugh. A lot of you know that I've been keeping a list of things that people say at my workshops, because I'm going to make a whole series of T-shirts. And somebody just made a comment. Actually, Michael made a comment. I'm going to make a T-shirt out of that one, Michael. Dirt never scores well. That's perfect. I love it. And as if I can take credit for that, Michael. No, I'm not going to take credit, but
And now you've added a new one. Nature can't be contained.
there you go. That was good, Rick. I like that one.
That was good, Rick.
Well, thank you.
But he knew that. Okay, so we have just a couple more here. In Touch with the Sky. Ooh, what a cool story this is.
Go for it, Jeff.
Okay, I like the black and white because it takes us back more towards that story. If we had, beautiful yellow or pink white flowers in front of us, I think it would keep us. But this really brings it more into to the hiker there, to what they're thinking, what they're viewing. So it's just more part of the composition than the actual story. There's a lot of flowers there. Love the diagonals here of the. Let me get my little pen tool because that's fun. Diagonals, another lines there. Watch on my monitor, we're losing ever so slight, starting to get a little blown out. Clouds do have white areas with no detail. That's normal. But when you get big blocks of it, and this is coming close, I can promise you'll have a judge saying there's no detail in the clouds. Now, that's not to say you want to sharpen your clouds, because we've seen clouds don't have sharp edges either. So don't go
Yeah.
and sharpen the clouds so that you get, a defined edge like you would see in something in these areas if you use a sharpening tool. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, just a little bit, matter of fact, I think the whole sky area could be just a tiny bit darker, tiny bit. That one it would still hold. I like the silhouette. I like the little bit of texture in the rocks, and the flowers just kind of pulled through. And guys will ask you, what do you think we have? Of course, this depth of field where we have the very soft foreground. Is that an issue for you guys, or what do you think about that?
I wouldn't mind seeing what it looked like with that bottom inch or so cropped off.
Okay.
Um, and it would probably make it stronger because it will get rid of the totally soft flowers.
Maybe even up in.
Like, yeah, right in there. See, I think that works fine. You might come down just a little, but not much.
Well, it still gives you a story, doesn't it? It still
Yeah,
tells
right there. That still gives the story. And I'm going to go back to something you were talking about, Rick, just or Jeff, just a second ago, which was the clouds. And I agree with what you said. That those big areas, these areas like this, and this, and right there are gonna you're gonna hear a judge say that there's no detail in there. That said, and I think they need to be taken down. You've got to be really careful when you start taking clouds down that they don't get muddy
right. Yeah.
because if there's no texture already in those areas, if there is, like right over here is a nice example of there is texture within that. See all the little defining lines within that cloud. But if that just turns out to be a big gray spot, it's going to not look good. So you have to be really careful if you do take this sky down, which I do think it needs. But I totally agree with the positives that Jeff mentioned. All the diagonals that we had were just wonderful. Um, all the movement that you get. There's movement in the clouds. There's movement in the foreground. There's movement in that hillside. There's layers that just draw you through front to back and make it very powerful.
So I've added a gradient overlay to the sky, and I think, and I'm probably like 70% opacity. So we've got just, I think this dark corner balances with the dark corners here. This could maybe go a little deeper, but it's bringing back some of the punch of the clouds. Again, just dealing with this little bit and with these Dave's little yellow circles. Yeah, you can tell. We're talking a little bit. We're talking, 5-10% darker than they are, just so that you don't get a big. We go from a white spot to a gray spot. That wouldn't be cool. Rick, let
Yeah.
me give
You
you
know,
what it really looks like.
yeah. And coming back to the foreground and uh the shallow depth of field, if we look at this area here that's in the foreground, and it's clearly a good third of the whole property there. So by coming up and cropping as we did, that minimized the real estate that's with that shallow depth of field. So that's why I agree that we need to come up. And I just feel that when we look at an image, how much of that image,
Yeah.
um,
So you're saying the crop is a good thing?
oh yeah, absolutely,
Okay, let me
absolutely.
take it up to them again. Yep, I got to get
And
out
then
the
the question
tool.
always is it adding to or taking away from the image? And in my opinion, with so much of this area that's with the shallow depth of field, in my opinion, it's not helping me out. It's taken away from my appreciation of the image, and this crop serves it much better.
The other thing that would help that area just a little bit too would be to maybe, well, now that you've cropped it, is to what's left of that area of real estate is to lighten it just a little bit because tonality wise, this area and this area have very similar or equal values. And if this
Oh,
whole area here was lightened, um, not necessarily the flower tops, but the mid tones and the deep tones was lightened a little bit, it would define those layers better than letting them meld into the mountain.
yeah, good point. I would go in there and just take that area and actually reduce the contrast and let it be lighter that way, because your flowers are still going to stay bright enough, but you'll get these dark
Yeah,
tones will
that's
go a medium gray instead.
that'd be a good way to do that, Jeff.
But I love the story here. Um, Again, the title was To Touch the Sky. It just really makes you think about what's going on in this, not just the story, but in their mind and all those things. So it's good
Very
storytelling.
cool story.
Yeah. After we've totally butchered your image, I hope you get the message. Two more to go. This maker, there's probably several of them, but these titles. Two otters went into a bar. I mean, look at the expressions, the tongue.
I know those guys. I think I'm friends with those guys. Oh my God. What a wonderful capture. The expressions are just priceless. And they do look like two guys that have been in a bar.
Yeah, they stumbled
Wow.
out. It's the sun's starting to come up and they're going to go home and they just stumbled out. They don't know what to do.
Absolutely. Tongue sticking out on the one and the other just yawning or laughing. I'm not sure which, but wonderful, wonderful capture. I like the long, skinny, slim panoramic. You've gotten rid of, we've been doing this all night to everybody. So this person's already done it for us. They've gotten rid of everything that wasn't important and left everything that needed to be left. Um, Probably the only thing I would really work on is toning down these little babies right here. I wouldn't get rid of them, just tone them down. But and then may try to play with lightening the faces, the gray tones in the faces just a little bit, so they
Right.
pop just a little bit more. But boy, what a fun story!
Yeah, I agree. Rick, you want to add to that?
Oh, just a presentation. We talked about that tonight, so I think we brought that home clear enough. Man, those expressions are something else.
Right, right. I don't know what more I could add because I think it's one of these images, just that simple little changes could make this thing really scream in a competition. Because there's such strong storytelling here and the lasting impact when it comes up on the screen. I want to keep saying it comes up on the box. Those of us who've been around knows what that means. Um, but yeah, good stuff. Good stuff.
Great title too.
Yeah, and that makes it so much. I mean, sometimes we can get a little too far with titles, but instead of just saying, you know, two otters taking it easy or two otters on a log, I mean, yeah, that tells what it is, but we can see what it is. You've injected this wonderful storyline that makes us laugh like we did and talk about it. Not that the judges have that opportunity, but in their little minds, they're thinking those same silly things. So that's points right there. How many points? I can't tell you. Is it 2 points, 5 points? I don't know. But it just certainly makes it a positive thing. Don't you agree, guys?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely, because what our whole goal with photography and art is to make people feel things,
Yeah.
whether it's pain, love, laughter, whatever. It's to make us feel. And you made us laugh. I mean, we already got the idea that we were walking into a joke as soon as we heard the title. And then when those faces came up, I mean, oh my God, you couldn't help but smile. And if it makes you smile like that, you're going to get rewarded with the points.
Exactly.
Mm.
Very well said. That's so true. Yeah. Even if it's not a lighthearted or comical scene, even if it's a serious, like the young person standing on the hillside, again, the title, if it reaches into the heartstrings and pulls on some things that somebody may think of a lost loved one or think of a story, or a breakup, and just stuff like that just really pulls on the heartstrings, I think that's where you start getting your points. So it doesn't have to be a funny one or a positive one. It can be serious and deep.
Absolutely.
So we have one more image to look at. This is a phenomenal one called Wisdom. Rick, what do you think?
I've always appreciated, and I think everyone knows, classic portraiture with really classic lighting. Where do we go with it? Excellent two-third view of the face, um, sculpted, that beautiful face sculpted just properly with the light. We've got really nice, a nice kicker light, camera right that's separating the subject from the background, square presentation and composition. If I would make any suggestion, maybe to crop in just a little from the right so that the gentleman's face isn't too close to the edge here. And as I'm seeing it on my monitor, I think we can come down in density just a little bit on the image. And the ratio is handled so well, I think it could really handle being uh, printed down. See how many people know that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Go back in the dark room and burn it in, will you?
Yeah. But in the expression, is just right there. A lot of times when we see images like this with the glasses that are slipped down a little bit, sometimes they'll cut across the eyeball. And I think a lot of care was taken, a lot of thought, because notice how the rim of the glasses is just underneath the eyes. So we're looking right into the eyes. Just very, very classic, well done portrait.
So I'm going to take just real quickly, Rick, while you've been talking about this, I've got a levels layer up here. I'm going to take the middle slider, so it's going to take the blacks too dark, but let's just look at the face. Are you suggesting maybe more in there as opposed
Something
to
along that
here?
line. Yeah, yeah.
Something like that as opposed, again, don't look at the shirt, just look at the face.
Right, yeah.
Something
See,
in here
I
as
think it
opposed to
just
this.
yeah, and it just to me it introduces more character to the subject.
Maybe a little too dark, like there.
Yeah.
Dave, what do you want to add?
I agree with everything Rick said. It's wonderful. I also agree with what you said that it did need to come down just a little bit, particularly in the face. The only other thing, and there's nothing you can do about it after the fact, but the depth of field to me is just almost a little too shallow. And I'll say that because I look at the right side of the shirt and it is so crisp with all the checker pattern, the line pattern. And I look at from the buttons over to his right, and that's all really soft, soft, soft. Um, and I would love for that just to have just a little more depth of field. Um, it wouldn't have to be super crisp, but right now it's pretty soft over there.
On the
But
back
I
show.
love the expression, love the light quality on the face, love the eyes. I mean, he has lit those eyes so beautifully, or she has lit the eyes so well that you're just thrown right into that face. And where the placement of the glasses, because most of us old folks tend to look over the glasses because we have readers.
So we can see, right?
Yeah, it's what we do. So it's a wonderful portrait.
And sometimes it's so tempting to go in and do a lot of retouching, and I'm just totally against it well, maybe that's a little harsh, a little strong, but I'm not in favor of that when it comes to beautiful character studies, because, we see on his forehead and the top of his head, the signs of the time of this gentleman, and the creases in his face. And it would just, I think it would be such a disservice to go in and smooth out everything. I think the character needs to be there, and kudos to the maker that left him there.
Absolutely.
Yep, totally agreed. Good work, people. All right,
Very
that
nice
was
stuff.
our last image of the evening. I hope we've been helpful. Does there anybody have any questions or any other feedback they'd like to? We've got a couple minutes we can go. We've gone long this evening, but you guys are still hanging with us. Thank you for that. Any questions on images that you want to go back at? Just remember that Rick is the jury chair for the Colorado Convention, so you probably don't want to give yourself away. But if you want to type something in there, we will jump on it and so on like that. What else can we tell them about image competition, Rick?
Uh, you know, last week and then tonight and all through our shows in the last year and a half or almost 2 years now, we've really hoped to inspire and to offer advice and some opinions that would really take you to the next level. So there are some, I'm sure, of our viewers that submit images to give feedback, and maybe at some point I'll consider entering competition. But right now I want feedback. There's uh, personal development speaker, T. Harv Eker, and he says, that a lot of times we want to do this, but we're afraid for whatever reason that it won't be accepted, that the fear of a failure, that type of a thing. And he says something that just really stuck to me. He says, you're gonna have times of failure. Just, and quoting him, just get in the game.
Yeah.
Get in the game, and what were the other terms that we used to hear years ago? Get your feet wet, that the whole thing. Just get in the game. Get in the game and learn from the feedback. So if you're hesitating at all, put that aside, and let's just have fun. It's not personal, no matter what Jeff says. You got
No matter how hard I try.
it's such a growing process. Whatever success I've had in my photography, as far as the quality, I relate it directly to image competition. And yeah, there's I'm gonna have some bombs. I've had bombs, and I'll have some more bombs, but you don't grow unless you get in the game.
Well
That
said.
said, I can give you two instances. Um, One, the first time I entered competition, I had never seen a competition, but I knew I wanted to try it. I wanted to grow. I wanted to learn. So I entered an image on masonite, flat matte finish, low key. And you know what that looked like under the lights.
Looked like mud.
And,
It looked like a
and
mud
it's,
pie.
yeah, and it scored in the 60s. I had never seen a competition. I had no idea. But the judges, I went through the exhibit with them after the judging, and I asked them about my image. I asked them about other images, why they scored the way they did. And the judges are so kind and caring. They walked me through all of it, and they explained it, so it made much more sense. You know, go down the road quite a few years. I had the highest scoring image at print competition in Kentucky and the lowest in the same judging.
Did you really?
I did.
Wow.
I had a 69 and a 97 in the same judging.
Wow.
And,
Yeah. That's
you
crazy.
know, it's, you have to put it out there. You have to try it. And you can't take it personally. It's not personal. This is five people's opinion on any given day. And if you go into it with the right attitude, that they may be wrong or right, but it was their opinion, and they felt that way. So maybe I should look at that image and try to understand why they felt that way. Maybe I agree with those changes, maybe I don't, but that's the success you're going to get from competition, is by listening to these people. Because any time I've ever been on a panel, 90% of the judges or more aren't there to be mean or critical. They're
Not at
there
all.
because they want you to grow, and they want to help you be the best maker you can be.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to add to it, is that this is not about trying to find out who sucks and who does bad job and trying to bring them out and make them feel bad about it. It's about looking at things and trying to say, hey, I know this that might help this, and then the next guy may have something to add to it that can make it better. And again, it's just points of view, but when three or four people say the same thing, it might be something that you should consider. But it's all about helping. It's all about, matter of fact, when we have our little judges meeting before a competition, they want us to work together. They want us to give the benefit of the doubt to the maker. And it's not a matter of, okay, I gave it a 77 and one judge gave it a high score and I went to 78. No, I mean, there's times that we may go, okay, you made a point, you're good, so I'll jump it. If they want it to be up in the upper 80s and there's good points, I'm right up there with them. So it's all about listening to each other and giving the maker the benefit of the doubt. And I will say sometimes if you do get a 65, you deserve it. And that's not meant to be funny because we've all been there, but man, what a learning tool that is. So if you get one of those, don't quit. Don't go get well, you can get a beer, that's okay, but don't go to the bar and stay there all night. Just learn from it. As hard as it is to learn, just remember, nobody's going to know it's yours unless you tell them. But man, what a great learning experience that is. So, and that's why we started the show, as we were talking about in the beginning of it. Why did we start this? That's why, because I know I mean, Rick and I were very fortunate to grow up with dads who were not just good photographers, but also judges, and were very concerned and wanting to help with people. But just getting into that environment and learning just makes it, say it with me now, more better.
I will absolutely admit nothing has improved my images as much as listening to you ignorant morons over these years.
We don't know, and we've called the judges worse, but hey, it's
Yeah,
all done in love, right? It's all done
but
out of love.
you're absolutely correct.
Yep.
So I'll add to that and try and be more polite than Cliff just was. But hey,
That'll be
ser-
easy.
That's not a stretch.
but seriously, thank you, Jeff and Rick, for all that you do with the image critique shows and so forth. And that
Welcome.
every time I see these and go through those and that, it's like I learn so much, not only from my own images and the comments on mine, but the comments throughout the entire program and that. And a huge thank you also to Dave. Your comments tonight were so valuable in that. I like tonight I learned quite a bit. I'm going to keep my comments shorter than I usually do, but I will say this is that I did write down, Jeff, dirt never sells well. We actually have to come up with a whether it's a book or an article or something like that of whether it's Jeffisms or Jeff Johnsonisms. I don't know what it is, but we will build that out, and that one is maybe the title of the book.
Well, like I
But
said, I definitely want to have a t-shirt shop online with all these sayings.
right. But no, again, phenomenal. And I have to say too that I think based on what I saw tonight, some of the images that came across and what I've seen over the course of the last several image critique shows, and that I think we have a really exciting state image competition coming up.
Yes.
Some of the things that I saw tonight, the way they were presented were phenomenal. Make those adjustments to your personal level, and that what you feel makes sense or whatever, and that take the comments that you heard tonight and through the course of the last several segments of this program. But I've been doing it all along, and so I've been building my portfolio, right? That's coming into the state image competition. But based upon what I've seen through these last several image critique shows, there's a lot of great talent out there. There's a lot of great images. I have to admit, I'm a little bit intimidated in that, but
Yeah.
but having said that, that's what makes it fun. That's what makes it. I think this is one of the ones that, for those that can show up to our, we have a watch party in that will be there on October 20th. If you can show up to that, there's a lot of photos I saw tonight that I think there will be a lot of cheering and hands raised and clapping and so forth. It really is exciting. So I just say, again, thank you for everything that you've done. I'm really excited about October 20th, and I'm putting some of my images together as we speak. I've got about half of them done, a couple of comments from tonight, and I will
Good.
have
Good.
wrapped up next week. And I will stop. I don't want to talk too much.
No, you're fine. Hey, and Rick, I want to share this with you. You know how I am. If I don't tell you now, I'll forget it. Um, just what Michael said and David alluded to is that, so Dave, one of the things that we do in the state is to have um, awards for folks who do, because we can submit 8 images, but our 6 is the level that we use for scoring. So like we have a photographer of the year, it's the best case score of 6, your best 6 images and so on. So, but we also have these awards. Michael, you'll have to help me now because there's new words, but we have 6 for 6, 5
Mhm.
for 6, and it's 4 for 6 above 80. And now we did include we expanded a little bit, but I'll tell you, usually we've had 6, 8, maybe 10 people that would score that high in all their images and get that award. And again, I sound like I don't mean to pat myself on the back or Rick, but it's folks like you, and we've had 18 shows now of several other geniuses. We had almost 40 people score in those 4 for 6, 6 for 6
Wow.
category last year and a lot of them said because of this help that we're offering. So. Again, I'm not saying I'll say congratulations to Rick because he's part of it, but I'm not saying it for that. I'm saying we're putting out something that I think is valuable and people learning from it and taking advantage of it, and they're learning too. It's not
Yeah.
like we're teaching them and they're doing what we're saying, but they're learning from it, and that's what this is all about, right, Rick? I mean, isn't that the whole point?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, and Jeff and Rick and Dave and others in that, don't hesitate from patting yourself on the back, because
Can't reach you anymore, though. That's the problem.
the value that you provide through these programs and that is part of what gets people to get, whether it be in our state image competition, or whether it be over in the PPA, MIR, or the other things that PPA, or wherever you enter your images. It's the feedback that you guys have provided that
Good.
allows, or that contributes to people getting those, I'll say, merit level and above scores in that. So
Right.
don't hold back on patting yourself on the back. This is valuable.
Well, it's
You
a
know,
career long thing too, isn't it, guys? I mean,
absolutely. Because
it's
I was
not just
thinking
getting
back
your master's and quitting.
when I started in Kentucky in competition, there was only a handful of masters in Kentucky at the time, and one of our goals when I got involved in print competition committee and was on there till around 25 years or so was to get as many masters in the state as we could,
Yeah.
and we went from a handful to a large number, and everybody was entering, and we increased participation so much, and it was just everybody's pulling everybody else up,
Yeah.
and it was such a fun thing to see. I mean, competition is such a weird thing because it's really you want to win photographer of the year, you want to win the awards, but really print competition is competition you can't lose because
Right.
it's going to make you better and everybody's cheering for you. I
Right.
mean, everybody wants everybody to do well. Period.
Right.
That's what's fun about it, and
Exactly.
everybody's willing to help each other to become better.
Well, when you get that 98, that's phenomenal. But when you get that 68, that's a bigger teacher, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I've had a lot of teachers.
Well, so we were talking the other day. I have my case. I got my master's on 25 print merits. I don't want any of you to see it. I don't want another soul to see those images because they just ain't so good. I mean, they'd probably be upper 60s now, seriously. Anyways.
Yeah, I gotta go, guys. I will see you
Cliff, thank you,
soon.
man. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Remember, we're not doing a show the third Thursday this month now because of the
All right.
competition, so it won't be till November. And then
You
it'll
bet.
be the Thursday before Thanksgiving, so a week early. We'll put it out there. You'll see it. But thank you,
Okay.
Cliff. Appreciate it, man.
Nice meeting you, Dave.
Nice to meet you, Cliff.
Cliffy, thank you so much, as always.
You bet, Rick. So yeah.
All right.
Well, good
All right.
stuff, gang. Thanks for hanging in there with us. Several of you guys have been coming. Well, actually, most of you guys have been coming many shows, and we appreciate it. It's another thing I meant to. Let's see, Michael, how many masters are there in the Colorado group now? Do you have any idea?
To know that answer, right? It's I'm gonna guess, if I just
Especially in the last 10 years.
sort of like a guess. I will say this is that I believe that within the Colorado group, we probably have maybe 40% of the members. So,
Really?
just math on it, that would be right around 40 or so, something like that. Maybe it's a little bit higher than that. But I do know that I think, in terms of the various, state organizations and that the state affiliates, or what we call them now, I think that we proportionately we're ahead of most of the other states in that, in terms of those that are, masters that have earned that degree, that have received that number of merits. And again, it's, that they've done well at the PPA level, partly because they've done so well at the state level.
Well, I don't know the numbers, but the new the G is the new platform and how they do it. But even before that, in the finals when they'd have however they laid it out with categories and finals, we would have more than a couple people from Colorado in those last few images. I mean, last year
Yeah.
when it came down to whatever how many images were left in the G is the last 40 or whatever it was, we had 7 or 8 people in that group.
Right, right. That get there and get on the stage at
Yeah,
image on that.
yeah.
those final days and that.
And it's all because of Rick, so that's why we're doing it. So.
Right.
But seriously, it's a combination of a lot of what we try to learn in the education through programs and that, but a
Yeah.
big is the image, the image competitions and the what you guys provide here in terms of the education on the image critique show. And we try to provide value throughout, but that transcends into people being successful at the national level, I believe.
Well, we have such a delivery policy here that if they don't do it, it's pretty high penalty. They don't do it the way we say. So having said that, I have even a new idea, and I'm not going to tell you about it now. Rick and I got to talk about it more, but we even have a new idea to have people help each other with this competition thing. So it's even more better.
And I'll say it once again, what you guys provide and what you're always looking to up the level of critiques and so forth, and that it really is appreciated.
Well, it's a labor of love, Michael.
Sure.
It is. I mean, it's something that I mean, we do this. Well, you know us. We're not doing this for somebody to pat us on the back. It's not that at all. I just love when we get, and I know Dave will agree with this, when we get our own degrees, it's phenomenal. But when you sponsor somebody and walk them across the stage, that's almost like having your kid being born. I mean, that is just too cool. So
Fantastic.
that's all we're trying to do. Well, Dave, thank you so much, my friend. It's good to see you and hang out with you again for a little bit. And next time you come out here, definitely let us know, because we know we want to at least have a meal with you, if not go shoot somewhere with you. So
Well, I would love that. We're gonna try to make it out next summer. If it works, I'll get with you guys and try to arrange a time to meet up.
We
I don't know if you know this about Rick, but he loves my background pictures. The whole thing, every time I go out and shoot this beautiful mountain scene with the storm, whatever, what a great background picture that would be. What a subject to put a family in front of it, or a model, or saw horses or something. Yeah. Anyways,
Dave, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking your time out tonight. I know it's late for you. It's close to 11 o'clock now?
Close to it.
Yeah. But
Right.
Thank you so much, my friend. It's I've been looking forward to this, and we have had a little time and space between us, but we're making that up, and we all appreciate having you here tonight.
Well, you're quite welcome, and I'm tickled that you asked, and I was glad to be able to do it.
Absolutely. Big help. And watch for the check in the mail. Cliff will share his wealth with you on what we make. Oh, he's gone. He didn't get that.
Yeah, he didn't get that, but I understand that if I get half as much as Cliff, I'll be excited.
Okay. Me too. Thanks, everybody. We appreciate it. Thanks again,
Thanks,
Michael.
guys.
All right, guys.
Michael, thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you for watching the Image Critique Show with Jeff Johnson and Rick Avalos. Learn more by checking them out at theimagecritiqueshow.com.